Good morning, everybody. So glad you could join us. We are looking forward to continuing our uh, class on adrenals and stress and how that all affects our bodies and how to help ourselves. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about functional testing, but first, let's take some time to really zero in and focus. Let's take our minds off of all the things that are around us that have been creating distraction. We're going to sit and relax and take some deep breaths. If you want, you can close your eyes. And if you are uncomfortable, you can leave your eyes open, but we're just going to take some time to focus and bring ourselves into the present. So let's just take some deep breaths on our own. Remembering to focus on our breathing. Take this opportunity to set aside all of those things that our mind gets distracted by, and all of those things that we have to worry about or think about. Set them aside. They'll be there later. You want to do some guided breaths. Take a deep breath in and hold it. And exhale slowly through your mouth. Feeling the tension out of your shoulders. Relax if you need to wiggle a little bit. Again, another deep breath, as deep as you can take. A little bit more. And hold it. And slowly blow it out, relaxing all the tension in your body. One more deep breath. Feel the tingling in your body, getting all that extra oxygen. Deep breath as deep as you can, a little bit extra. A little bit more. Hold it. And blow slowly out through your mouth, feeling the tension dissolve. And when you get to the bottom, blow a little bit more. Just take a relaxing breath now. And if you want, you can open your eyes when you're ready. Breathing normal, but still focusing on our breath. All right. Welcome again to our class today. So today we're going to talk about functional testing, some personalized insight, and kind of, if you haven't already taken the the cortisol test, the diurnal cortisol test with me, or if you've taken it but it was a long time ago, this class is going to help you understand that testing, what it means, as well as an opportunity to kind of track yourself throughout the time that you're working and trying to repair your own adrenal function and your own HPA function. And so one of the things that's really good about today is we're going to also give you a worksheet you can download, and we'll talk about that worksheet a little bit, so that maybe you had a HPA or a diurnal cortisol test years ago, but you're kind of curious about where you're at now and don't want the expense of taking that test. You can track for yourself, and we're going to learn how to do that on our own today. And so I'm really excited about today. So we'll understand how functional lab test support give us support and clarity, as well as how to track throughout your health journey. So, so you might already be aware that your stress system is a little bit off. And so if we're able to do some functional testing, it helps make the invisible invisible. It helps to make the invisible visible so that you can see what's really happening. In this module, as I mentioned, we'll explore a salivary cortisol test and how it works and what the results reveal for us. We'll see some examples and we'll learn how to match our own symptoms to actual hormone patterns. This is about clarity, not labels. Little post-nasal drip from going on vacation last week. So, excuse my coughing. So welcome again. This is Module 3. We'll really, this is not about labels. This is not about a diagnosis. It's primarily about insight and learning about how our bodies work. So I'm going to make my screen a little bit bigger, take myself down a little bit. And we'll move on to the next slide. All right, so why do we use functional testing? Well, testing can validate our experience. So for real, you might feel off, and testing can show you how or why you feel off. It gives you measurable markers to track progress and to make informed changes. So it gives us a good picture of our cortisol patterns. It confirms symptoms that you're already observing, but no one is telling you that there's a problem or can't figure it out. And it'll help us and you tailor a recovery plan for you to begin the healing process. Really important situations for us to know so that we can be healthy. Let me point this one out to you real quick. On this cortisol graph, you can see the pink, the blue, the yellow, and then in the middle is the green. That black line that's in the green, that is a healthy cortisol pattern. So in the morning when we first get up, we should feel good. We should have some energy. And as the day goes through, we still have energy. We're not crashing, but in the evening we kind of slow down, and by nighttime we're ready to sleep. Why this happens is because cortisol is that energy provider that our body gives us, as we learned about last week. So, but we're going to see some different patterns. Some of us crash in the afternoon. Some of us are up all night and we're like zooming all night. And so those patterns are definitely a consideration and usually an issue. So the saliva test that we do measures our cortisol. We usually measure 4 to 5 times a day. I think it's 4 on the one that we recommend, waking up, midday and evening, and bedtime. It captures our natural rhythm and our total cortisol output, and it can be done at home with a simple saliva test if you haven't done it already. The cortisol is dynamic. A single blood draw doesn't really show much. Saliva testing allows us to map our rhythms throughout a full day, showing whether your cortisol is peaking or crashing or staying flat. So here's the idea. If you're watching a basketball game and you take a picture, a snapshot of that game, you don't really know what is happening in that moment or in that game. So for example, if the person is like this and you don't know if they're blocking somebody, did they just throw the ball? Are they asking for the ball? I mean, there's a lot of different possibilities if this is the snapshot that you took. There's no way to know in that snapshot, and that's a blood test. It's a snapshot of in the moment. So typically blood draws just don't give us enough information, just like that snapshot of that basketball game. Let's see, I think I have, yes. So what our results can show, there are different pattern types. So your pattern might show that you're up all day long. And this is hyperarousal. This is usually an early stage stress response. So the adrenals are going, hey, you're stressed out. We're going to keep you up here buzzing. Then there's the exhaustion phase or the burnout phase where we wake up in the morning and we're exhausted all day long and we're like flatlined at the bottom. Then there's a high nighttime cortisol pattern where we feel wired at night and we have sleep disturbances and we might be up multiple times in the night. And then there's a flat rhythm where the feedback loop is broken. Do you remember we talked about that a couple of weeks ago? We talked about a feedback loop, and that's dysregulation. So when we look at these patterns, it tells us what phase we might be in. So we could be in high cortisol in the evening with trouble falling asleep. We could be low cortisol in the morning, which means it's hard to get going in the morning, hard to wake up. We got to have 3 cups of coffee before we start moving. Slow mornings, right? And so these give us some information. Now I'm going to look at a worksheet. So I'm going to share my screen for a minute. Let's see. I'm going to share my screen for a minute. And we're going to look at this self-assessment just for a moment. All right. Now, we have a self-assessment, and we're going to actually sketch our own energy flow. And so you get a graph where you can start sketching your morning, noon, evening, and nighttime flow. And it gives you ideas and kind of what your mood is, your focus, cravings, kind of keeping up with what's happening each of these times throughout the day. And then comparing some of those patterns. And you can see here we have several different patterns, and each one of them is color coded, and then what it might mean. This is a really good way to track for yourself. And so I'm going to stop sharing, come back to you. Hello. All right. So real important, being able to track yourself. If you've already done the cortisol test, but it's been a while, you may want to keep tracking. Here's the worksheet. So once you've tracked, you'll need to interpret. If you're doing one that's being tested off site and you're having the results sent back to you, sometimes they give an explanation. Most of the time I'll go over that with you if you're working with me directly. But if you're doing your own, then you'll want to, help yourself, okay? And this is something you can do the rest of your life. It's to learn and do and keep up with yourself. The ideal curve rises sharply in the morning and then declines midday and is its lowest at night, as we saw in the graph earlier. Deviations from this pattern help target support more precisely, whether it's through sleep resets or blood sugar support or nervous system tools, different ways that we can, and we'll learn about as we go through our program, different ways that we can adjust our lifestyle and the different things that we do in order to improve our hypothalamus and our cortisol responses. So a healthy curve, of course, is highest in the morning, declines throughout the day. Any variation can point to where and how your support is needed and when we combine test results with our symptoms, and that's why we take those notes, we get a better picture. Now, most of us are asking, but, how do I know I'm healing? Or is healing happening? Or, what happens when I go through this again? Because, hey, sometimes that happens, right? So I want to talk a minute about basic healing timelines. Now, if you are in hyperarousal, which is that first phase where we're high cortisol across the board, it usually takes 1 to 2 months with some calming focus and some managing our lifestyle, maybe eating some protein in the morning to kind of help boost our cortisol levels and cutting down on the protein in the evening. A lot of times that helps. Just a lifestyle change, making some different choices. Maybe food choices can help, and doing some calming exercises. Because our timelines aren't rigid, they're just a guide. Our healing speed depends on many, many factors. It depends on how much rest you're getting, nourishment, mindset, whether you're consistent. I want you to really be patient with the process, okay? So if you're in that resistance phase, okay, then it might take, several months for you to get to a stability place. You may not be fully healed at that point, but you'll be stable and it'll be easier for you to heal. When we heal, I'm going to talk about the exhaustion phase first. In the exhaustion phase, that can take more than a year to heal, okay, for rebuilding that HPA stable response. But when we're healing, through that healing process, we start with, say you're in the exhaustion phase, you're going to go then to the resistance phase. And then you'll get to the hyperarousal phase, and then you'll heal. So just like when you went from hyperarousal into resistance into exhaustion, the healing goes the opposite direction. So you're going to heal, you've gotten here one way, you're going to have to heal the same way, only backwards, right? So it's important for us to be patient with this process. The other thing is that maybe you're having difficulty with consistency, or maybe you are anxious, which will slow this process down. Maybe you're not getting enough nourishment and we have to get your gut healthy first, right? We've had this conversation. If you've been working with me, you know this already. We have to get the gut healthy first so we can absorb nutrients so that our body has the building blocks and the tools to actually begin the healing process. All right. I know y'all sick of hearing me talk about guts. It's like, finally, she's going to talk about something else. Oh, man. All right. So this is just a mock test example. Mock results help bring to life what we're talking about here. So seeing this test laid out visually makes it easier to connect the dots between numbers and how you might feel day to day. So this sample is low in the morning. It's kind of a flat curve. It's not, moving much. And it spikes in the evening. You might feel fatigue in the morning and wired at night, some poor sleep. You might have sugar or salt cravings throughout the day. And so things that you might do in order to improve this would be to work on resetting your circadian rhythm, taking some adaptogen herbs to help your body work better and to adapt to to the changes you're getting ready to take. And again, a protein-rich breakfast, which I mentioned earlier, getting some protein in the morning to get that boost in the morning. When we eat protein actually boosts our cortisol production. So when we eat protein, we're feeding our adrenals to boost that cortisol production and keep us going. This is also why when we eat protein at night, we might stay up, we might have dreams throughout the night, we might not be able to sleep well, we might wake up several times because you've just indicated to your body that it's time to wake up. And so the body will produce cortisol, and that changes our circadian rhythm. and changes how our body functions. So really, really important to kind of be aware of what you're eating and the time of day, and making sure that you're feeding your body what it needs in order to function in the proper way. All right. I want to talk about, this is not a real person, um, but just a little bit of a case study here to help you track some insight, and maybe help you make some meaningful change. Because the bottom line is this functional testing doesn't replace our intuition. Okay. You know how you feel, no matter what your test results are. Just like you've gone to the doctor umpteen times and they keep seeing everything's okay. You know your body is not healthy. You know something is up. Now, it may not be a disease, because until the doctors can find something, it's not a disease. So no stress over it, but it enhances our understanding and enhances our intuition to begin to pay attention to what is happening in our body, not with fear, but with curiosity. All right, so Erin's about 38 years old. They're a teacher. They reported anxiety, insomnia, and out in the afternoon, they crashed. Well, so their cortisol levels in their tracking for the day was elevated in the morning, but it was low in the middle of the day, and then it went back up in the evening. So in the morning, felt okay, had energy, midday, crashing, and then in the evening, now I'm awake again. Can't sleep. Sitting there thinking 1,000 things. You know that feeling, right? I'm sure some of you have been there. All right, so what we would do is we might give you some blue light, so some blue glasses, which really, really help. We'll teach you some breath work. We did some of that this morning. And we're going to encourage a protein snack in the middle of the day. What did I say protein did? It boosts cortisol levels, right? So we're going to encourage a protein snack. Make sure we're getting protein at lunch, and encourage a protein snack in the midday so that they can boost their cortisol levels. By the end of about 6 weeks, Erin was noticing that her sleep was better, she was more stable in her moods, and her mornings were better. And while they were good before, the brain fog had kind of lifted, which is really good, right? So this really helps when you start looking at these patterns of things that you can do to improve, and some interventions that you can make, and changes in lifestyle. So what's ahead? Next, we're going to explore how to naturally rebalance the HPA axis with food, with rhythm, with lifestyle support. This is where we're going to turn insight, do that insight work this week, into action. Make sure that if you haven't had a cortisol test recently, that you do the worksheet. And there's a couple of things to download in the classroom. Download those worksheets. They'll be important to help you with tracking and targeting what's going on in your body, so that you know your patterns. Then this next few weeks, we're going to really begin targeting the support. We're going to look at different activities and different things that you can do in the next few modules to be able to know how to support those different things that you're noticing in your own patterns. All right. So let's use this knowledge. We're going to personalize our healing. And remember, you're not guessing, you're understanding, right? Because we need to understand. I'm going to tell you right now, go download the materials, do your work this week. Let us know in the community how you're doing, what you've found. I'll try to get a homework thing up. I'm not sure if I'll get it up this week, but really take time. Get to know what's going on in your body. And we're going to learn all kinds of ways to help you. But first, you have to understand what's truly happening. So we're glad to have you. Have a good week. I think next week we may we'll have our just before 4th of July activity. I think that's next week. And we're looking forward to having everybody continue with us in your health journey. Thank you. Have a great day.